Bienvenidos al canal de YouTube de Ediciones Rodio. Aquí encontrarás vídeos especializados en cada tema. Si te gusta nuestro contenido, no olvides suscribirte, darle a me gusta y comentar tu experiencia. Gracias por elegirnos en tu camino hacia el éxito.
Recuerda que todos nuestros temarios también están disponibles en formato digital y papel. Para cualquier duda puedes escribirnos a info@edicionesrodio.com. Cuerpo de Maestros. Inglés. Volumen 2.
Main ideas. Introduction. In this topic we are going to describe and analyze some aspects concerning educational materials section, production and their uses. In addition, we are going to show the positive and negative aspects of the use of the textbook in the English class, since many teachers frequently use them in their classes. This topic is of particular relevance since educational resources can contribute to the development of the student's communicative competence, as reflected in the Common European Framework of Reference, the CEFR, published by the Council of Europe. In addition, communicative approach is closely related to some of the basic principles present in the recently Organic Law 3/2020 BO of the 29th of December 2020, henceforth LOMLOE, amending the Organic Law of Education 2006. Also, one of the objectives of primary education, reflected in the Crown Decree 157/2022 of March 1, Article 7, is to acquire in at least one foreign language the basic communicative competence to express and understand simple messages in everyday situations. On the other hand, the Crown Decree 157/2022, Article 9, mentions the key competence, linguistic communication competence, which is related to the ability to interact coherently and appropriately in different contexts. 1. Elaboration of ESL curriculum materials. There are two main groups of curriculum materials. Materials to orientate the elaboration of the educational project and of the curricular project. Materials to orientate the teaching process. Here we are going to concentrate on the latter group, as the first one is not of great importance for the area of foreign languages. In this group the following items can be included. Teacher's guides. Learning situation and lesson plans. Curricular adaptations. Didactic modules. Guides for the usage of resources, including audio, computer and visual materials. We propose the following websites where all kind of teacher's guides can be consulted. http://www.macmillan.es/ http://www.oop.es http://kidix70.tripod.com/teacherresources.htm http://globalclassroom.org/resource.html/reading. How to use the different resources is explained in topic 24, and in the following, we are going to present some interesting rules to write a successful learning situation or lesson plan. A one and only way to develop a learning situation and/or lesson plan does not exist. We are trying to show a general overview, adapted from www.lessonplanspage.com, that highlights the key points of creating a learning situation and/or lesson plan. 1. The first thing to consider, obviously, is what you want to teach. This should be developed based upon educative standards established by law. You also need to be aware of what grade or level you are developing the learning situation, lesson plan for, and also record a time estimate for your learning situation, lesson plan, to help in time budgeting. 2. Once you have your topic, you can begin determining how you want to teach the topic. Having your learning situation, lesson plan correctly aligned with curriculum standards helps to prove its worthiness and necessity. It also helps in assuring that your pupils are being taught what the curriculum requires. 3. To make sure the learning situation, lesson plan will teach exactly what you want it to, you need to develop clear and specific objectives. Objectives should not be activities that will be used in the lesson plan. They should instead be the learning outcomes of those activities. Objectives and aims should also be directly measurable. See assessment, evaluation. In other words, at the end, you must be able to tell whether these objectives and aims were met or not. There will certainly be more than one objective for a learning situation, lesson plan. 4. The materials you are going to use later should be shown early in your learning situation, lesson plan. Specify the materials, resources to make sure you will have everything you need. 5. It may be helpful to write an anticipatory set, which would be a way to lead into the learning situation, lesson plan, and develop the student's interest in learning what is about to be taught. 6. Now it is necessary to write the step-by-step procedures that will be performed to reach the objectives. These do not have to involve every little thing the teacher will say and do, but they should list the relevant actions the teacher needs to perform. 7. After the procedures have been completed, you should provide time for independent practice. 8. Just before moving on to the assessment phase, you should find some sort of closure for the learning situation, lesson plan. A good idea for this is to return to your anticipatory set. 9. It is time to write your assessment, evaluation. Every learning situation must and every lesson plan should have some sort of evaluation of whether or not the objectives were reached. The key in developing assessment is to make sure that the assessment specifically measures whether the objectives were reached or not. Thus, there should be a direct correlation between the objectives and the assessments. 10. Adaptations should also be made for students with learning disabilities, students with specific needs for educational help, and extensions for others. 11. It is also a good idea to include a connections, interdisciplinarity section, which shows how the lesson plan could be integrated with other subjects. Putting a lot of work into this can develop complete thematic units that would integrate related topics into many different subjects. This repetition of topics in different subjects can be extremely helpful in ensuring retention of the material. 2. Criteria for choosing and using a textbook. Traditionally, a course book is considered an indispensable vehicle for foreign language acquisition whose validity and significance are seldom impugned. Many students working on a course book feel secure and have a sense of progress and achievement. They always have a book to relate to, they are not getting lost. Consequently, they become more confident and satisfied as they learn the target language within a certain framework. Furthermore, a textbook provides them with the opportunity to go back and revise. They can also use the textbook for self-study and as a reference tool. Besides, a well-illustrated book, together with easy-to-remember phrases and sensational pictures or titles, is preferable to photocopied material, which often gets lost and thus cannot be used as a base for study or review. Certainly, a course book is useful for the teacher to teach the necessary vocabulary and help the students to acquire and consolidate the 4 skills: reading, writing, listening, speaking. With its help, the preparations for the lesson are guided, and there is little need to produce or photocopy material. It guides any teacher on what and how to teach, giving some useful advice on the best techniques for presenting the material. It would be difficult to make up all these stories found in every course book that efficiently illustrate a tense or introduce the relevant vocabulary. Without a textbook, there would be no guidelines, no signposts. Students would feel insecure and teachers would need a lot of time to collect, edit, and photocopy materials. One of the disadvantages of using a textbook may be that students believe they no longer have to think, to work towards a goal, i.e. to learn the foreign language. They always follow a regular pattern. They read a text, then they answer some questions, then they discuss, then they write a letter, and so on. Therefore, a textbook should never be the only teaching material used in class. A teacher should provide remedial work or further exercises, and this should be done individually. As mentioned before, a textbook can serve several purposes for teachers: as a core resource, as a source of supplemental material, as an inspiration for classroom activities, even as the curriculum itself. When choosing a textbook, there are general criteria to be kept in mind, like limited awareness of available texts, budget restrictions, and limited availability of some textbooks. At the moment of choosing ESL textbooks, a teacher has to analyze the options according to program issues, going from broad, e.g. goals, aims, objectives, and curriculum, to specific, e.g. exercises and activities, elements. The strategy behind this technique is to eliminate unsatisfactory textbooks at each stage of analysis so that only the most appropriate are left at the end, making the choice clear and manageable. The following criteria should be respected when selecting a textbook. 1. Examine the curriculum and the syllabus. If the goals, aims, objectives in the curriculum and syllabus are clear and well defined, the parallels with certain textbooks may become obvious. 2. Choose a textbook series or use individual texts for each year. A series has the advantage of standardizing content and approach across levels, guaranteeing consistency of presentation of skills, spiraling of vocabulary, and reasonable progression of text difficulty. However, this regularity can become monotonous and predictable for learners, and could potentially cause an increase in negative attitudes toward the textbook. Using individual textbooks allows for more precise matching with objectives and a greater variety in design and content. Yet, there can be serious gaps in the material covered from one textbook to the next. 3. The objectives of the textbook match the objectives of the syllabus. For the missing objectives, every teacher should supplement the textbook with self-created materials or materials from other sources that reflect the unique needs of the class. 4. Identify the appropriateness of the text for the learners. Some textbook authors provide a clear description of their intended audience. The textbook should meet the needs of the learners in several ways, not only in terms of language objectives. Students and teachers both want visually stimulating material that is well organized and easy to follow, so layout, design, and organization should be considered. The learners' cultural backgrounds, ages, interests, and purposes in acquiring the second language must also be considered. The content of a textbook should also be sensitive to a range of cultural backgrounds and allow for comfortable and safe discussion of cross-cultural experiences and concerns. 5. The linguistic skills are practiced. Improving learners' language skills is one of the main purposes of any ESL syllabus. However, which skills are taught and how they are taught differs. Therefore, the effectiveness of each textbook in helping learners acquire the necessary skills must be considered. The selected textbook should develop the linguistic skills in an integrative way, as reflected in the Crown Decree 157/2022 of March 1, which establishes the basic curriculum of primary education, Annex 2, Foreign Language, Specific Competences. 1. To understand the general meaning and specific and predictable information of short and simple texts. 2. To produce simple texts in an understandable and structured way through the use of strategies. 3. To interact with other people using everyday expressions and resorting to various strategies. 4. To mediate in predictable situations, using strategies and knowledge to process and transmit basic and simple information in order to facilitate communication. 5. To recognize and use personal linguistic repertoires between different languages. 6. To appreciate and respect linguistic, cultural, and artistic diversity. 6. Reviewing and extension exercises and activities are included in the textbook. The exercises and activities in the textbook contribute to learners' language acquisition. Many exercises included in textbooks are convenient for teachers, but do not necessarily contribute to students' language development. Textbooks should include exercises that give students opportunities to practice and extend their language skills. 7. The exercises are balanced, containing both controlled, guided, and free practice. Controlled exercises refer to those that guide students to a single correct answer, such as a fill-in-the-blank grammar activity, whereas free practice involves exercises in which the answers are limited only by the student's creativity and knowledge. At times, students will require more guidance with an activity, especially when practicing a structure or function for the first time. For this purpose, controlled exercises are effective. However, students should also be given the chance to extend their experience with the language, and free exercises allow this opportunity. 8. The exercises are progressive as the students move through the textbook. Exercises should build on and reinforce what students have already learned, and should progress from simple, both linguistically and cognitively, to more complex and demanding. A textbook should require more from students as their language skills develop, so they are continually stimulated and challenged. 9. The exercises are varied and challenging. Keeping students motivated and interested as they work through a textbook is much easier if the students see something new in each chapter. Familiarity and routine can be comforting, but too much familiarity can lead to disinterest and boredom. The textbook should fulfill its role as a stimulus for communication, and not be simply an organizational tool for the teacher. Besides, the textbook should help pupils acquire the key competences, which are reflected in Crown Decree 157/2022, Article 9. 10. Availability and cost. Both are often the deciding factor in textbook selection, and they must be acknowledged. 11. Students will actually use great part of the textbook in class and as a study resource. The textbook is organized in ways that make it easy for students to find key points, practice their skills, test their knowledge, and apply the information to real-life scenarios. 12. Supplementary study materials. Materials such as exercise books, study manuals, websites, OHP transparencies, sample tests, teachers' manuals, CD-ROMs or other audio-visuals, etc. are provided. 13. The textbook is visually attractive. There should be an appropriate balance between text and illustrations. The font should be easy to read. The pages are not too densely printed, and the information is divided into manageable paragraphs with headings. The key points should be highlighted by placement or color. 14. The content must be up to date. The text should treat with topics the pupils are really interested in. After having considered all these criteria, it must be borne in mind that few textbooks will fulfill all of them, so the teacher has to consider which points are more important and decide. 3. Authentic and adapted documents, limitations of usage. It is important to know how authentic materials can be effectively used in the ESL classroom. Authentic material includes everything that has been written or made for English-speaking people. The term therefore includes TV and radio programs, newspapers, books, fairy tales, websites thought for English-speaking children, and so on. Authentic materials are readily available, inexpensive, appropriate for all skill levels, and not difficult to implement. Moreover, they provide students with a variety of long-term benefits. They introduce students to the foreign culture and provide them with opportunities to see where different grammatical structures and types of discourse are used. Furthermore, by presenting authentic materials in the classroom, students can not only be taught to critically analyze the target culture and the beliefs behind it, but also to categorize the massive amount of media they are exposed to each day, and so make suitable choices in their own leisure reading, listening, and viewing. Classroom activities become preparation for real-life scenarios. Authentic materials complement English classes by enlivening the class and creating a more positive attitude towards learning. To make good use of authentic material, it is recommendable to have an extensive collection of materials that include menus, maps, newspaper inserts, store advertisements, travel brochures, catalogs, phone books, and various pamphlets of sightseeing and tourist information. Sets of materials are particularly appealing. A set could include a map, a travel guide, a menu, and a store advertisement from the same town, all of which are interwoven, immersing the student in a multidimensional English experience. True, authentic materials are original in any way. They require the teacher to act as a filter, releasing the language in manageable quantities, raising or lowering the filter as needed, and ensuring the comprehensibility of the material through selection of the learning objective, the task to be accomplished, and the way the material is approached. Nevertheless, the teacher using authentic materials has other responsibilities too. as he must also learn how to identify authentic items, or determine their applicability and adaptability for classroom use. There are several important points to consider when choosing authentic materials. There should be enough copies of the materials to be used so that each student or pair of students can have a copy to use. It is best not to use material with too many pages, unless the pages are clearly numbered for easy reference. To be able to use the same materials in more than one class, they should be resistant and easy to keep. Also, it should be kept in mind that some materials are more easily dated than others. For example, last season's catalog does not have the same impact as a current one, which is filled with items which the student could actually order. A menu, on the other hand, can be used as long as the prices remain contemporary. Students are generally uninterested in special events, for example a concert, that have already passed. It is important to choose material that is appropriate for the student's level. However, a certain amount of adjustment can be made depending on the type and level of questions used in the accompanying question handout. When starting to use authentic materials, it is a good idea to hand out materials to each student and have them work individually. However, experience will show that having students work in pairs is a better approach because they tend to be more enthusiastic and work harder. Each pair is given the authentic material and a question handout. Interestingly, the student with the stronger command of English is not necessarily the one who is able to extract the most information from the material. Students of different abilities tend to complement one another and, as a result, do not give up easily. Students tend to contribute individual strengths to the completion of the task. If you tell students that question handouts will be collected, it keeps them more focused on the completion of the exercise. The teacher's personal anecdotes and other background information should be shared before the students begin concentrating on the material. After the authentic material has been distributed, it may be necessary to give a brief explanation and point out, for example, the importance of the table of contents in a pamphlet or the legend in a map. This is a good time for the teacher to explain measures, abbreviations, and difficult words or expressions. While the students are working on the assignment, the teacher helps them by answering questions and commenting on their work. This is also a good chance to give hints to those who are stuck on a particular question. Once the time is up, the teacher collects the material along with the question handout and goes over the difficult questions with the class. For the authentic materials to be effective, the questions must be well constructed too. Give the students the opportunity to practice English. Help the students gain confidence in their English ability. Expose the students to cultural differences and customs. Help the students develop their ability to find pertinent information quickly. Besides using questions, there are other methods of using authentic materials. Some of these can be used as a supplement to the question handout or on their own, for variety. Here are different examples of effective activities. Word search. The students search for parts of speech such as adjectives on a given page or search for certain categories of things. An advantage of this activity is that students do not need identical copies of the authentic material. Crosswords. The teacher prepares a crossword puzzle using words from the handout. The questions for the handout can also be presented as crossword clues. Crossword generating programs found on the internet make this easy. Personalizing. The students write a list of purchases for an imaginary party using a supermarket handout, plan a trip using a travel brochure, or plan a meal with a menu. The students could also be asked to fill out a mail order form with an imaginary order of purchases for family members, boyfriends, girlfriends, and themselves. Pair practice. The students ask and answer the printed questions on the handout and are encouraged to ask their own questions. The students can role-play the parts of customer and clerk, either following a sample conversation provided by the teacher or making up their own. Internet. The internet can be used to provide authentic material as well. The teacher can search for sites that focus on a specific topic, make questions, and post them online. These online lessons can be completed by the students on their own. Although the internet has many advantages, it cannot replace the three-dimensional quality of real materials brought into the classroom by the teacher. When used effectively, authentic materials help bring the real world into the classroom and significantly enliven the ESL class. Exposing the students to cultural features generates a deeper understanding of and interest in the topic. On the one hand, the students develop their ability to focus on relevant information, and on the other, they learn how to disregard what is not relevant. As students assemble their individual strengths, they gain confidence in being able to function in an English-speaking society. 4. Students' collaboration in designing material. This aspect of teaching English is also called learner-designed material and is mainly thought for students in higher grades. Learner-designed materials are an exciting area of language teaching. Songs, for example, offer a strong motivation for students to enter willingly into material design. Moreover, most students will listen to a large number of English songs before deciding on their final song, thereby introducing them to a rich, authentic source of English, which will continue to bring benefits of autonomous learning even outside school. Finally, when students develop their own tasks, they are better able to understand what they should learn. Many times, the students, having developed the materials, are willing and able to take on the role of the teacher and organize and lead the class in the task. Coming back to the idea of preparing a song for the use in the classroom, first, students might give a short presentation about why they chose the song. Then, they may present a gap-fill activity based on the lyrics. In some cases, however, class size or the level of the students might make it necessary to choose the best of the student materials for presentations, or to split the class into small groups to ensure that everyone's materials are used. The idea of learner-designed material is strongly related to the theory of learning styles. Each person's learning style is a combination of perceiving and processing information. There are 4 main styles. Type 1 Innovative learners. Hollow right-pointing triangle seek personal meaning. Hollow right-pointing triangle judge things in relationship to values. Hollow right-pointing triangle function through social interaction. Hollow right-pointing triangle want to make the world a better place. Hollow right-pointing triangle are cooperative and sociable. Hollow right-pointing triangle respect authority when it is earned. Type 2 Analytic learners. Hollow right-pointing triangle seek intellectual competence. Hollow right-pointing triangle judge things by factual verification. Hollow right-pointing triangle function by adapting to experts. Hollow right-pointing triangle need to know the important things and want to add to the world's knowledge. Hollow right-pointing triangle are patient and reflective. Hollow right-pointing triangle prefer chain of command authority. Type 3 Common sense learners. Hollow right-pointing triangle seeks solutions to problems. Hollow right-pointing triangle judge things by their usefulness. Hollow right-pointing triangle function through kinesthetic awareness. Hollow right-pointing triangle want to make things happen. Hollow right-pointing triangle are practical and straightforward. Hollow right-pointing triangle see authority as necessary, but will work around it if forced. Type 4 Dynamic learners. Hollow right-pointing triangle seek hidden possibilities. Hollow right-pointing triangle judge things by gut reactions. Hollow right-pointing triangle function by synthesizing various parts. Hollow right-pointing triangle enjoy challenging complacency. Hollow right-pointing triangle are enthusiastic and adventuresome. Hollow right-pointing triangle tend to disregard authority. Concluding, we can say that pupils can collaborate in the following way in the design of materials. At the presentation stage, it is difficult for them to participate because of the lack of knowledge. Nevertheless, they can bring facts in L1 to the classroom to be worked out in L2, and they can bring realias like photos or maps. At the revision or review stage, their possibility to collaborate is a lot bigger. They can ask each other questions in pairs. If they have made up these questions themselves, they are learner-designed. Pupils can work out surveys about different topics. The items in these surveys can be established by using the brainstorming technique, Thus, the students themselves contribute the material. They can write riddles. The texts will then be read out aloud, and the rest of the class has to guess what the writer referred to. If we want them to practice handicraft, we can ask them to make the board for board games. For that they will need cardboard, glue, scissors, etc., and it is important that the instructions, if there are any, should be in English, so as to practice the target language. If they enjoy painting, they can draw the pictures for games like dominoes or make their own flashcards. It is important to keep in mind that there are students who do not like drawing because they are not good at it. We should not oblige these pupils to draw too often because they will feel demotivated. They can prepare their proper word searches. To do so, they will need the grids where to write the letters, and they can pass them on to their classmates afterwards. Students in stages 5 and 6 can work out their proper newspapers and then sell them to other classes. The students in these classes can do the pastimes proposed and then send the solutions to the ones who made them up. Apart from riddles, students can also write short descriptive texts about known topics which can be read out in class, and then there may be comprehension questions to be answered. As we have already stated, the participation and collaboration of students will highly depend on their level of knowledge. That means the more English the pupils know, the more possibilities to collaborate there are. Decisions related to textbook selection will affect teachers, students, and the overall classroom dynamic. It is probably one of the most important decisions facing ESL educators. The use of an evaluation procedure or checklist can lead to a more systematic and thorough examination of potential textbooks and to enhanced outcomes for learners, instructors, and administrators. Every teacher should use a checklist as a tool when deciding which textbooks may be most appropriate for their classes. 1. Elaboration of ESL curriculum materials. There are two main groups of curriculum materials. Material to orientate the elaboration of the educational project and of the curricular project. Materials to orientate the teaching process. Materials to orientate the teaching process. In this group, the following items can be included: teacher's guides, lesson and unit plans, curricular adaptations, didactic modules, guides for the usage of resources, including audio, computer, and visual materials. Items a learning situation unit plan should explain. A. Aim of stage. B. Aims and objectives of the area. C. Didactic aims and objectives of the plan. D. Contents. E. Interdisciplinarity, key competences. F. Presentation and activities. G. Assessment and evaluation. H. Resources. I. Timing. 2. Criteria for choosing and using a textbook. 1. Examine the curriculum and the syllabus. 2. Choose a textbook series or use individual texts for each year. 3. The objectives of the textbook match the objectives of the syllabus. 4. Identify the appropriateness of the text for the learners. 5. The 4 skills are practiced. 6. Reviewing exercises and activities are included in the textbook and cover key competences. 7. The exercises are balanced, containing both controlled and free practice. 8. The exercises are progressive as the students move through the textbook and cover key competences. 9. The exercises are varied and challenging. 10. Availability and cost. 11. Students will actually use great part of the textbook in class and as a study resource. 12. Supplementary study materials. 13. The textbook is visually attractive. 14. The content must be up to date. 3. Authentic and adapted documents, limitations of usage. Authentic material includes everything that has been written or made for English-speaking people. The term therefore includes TV and radio programs, newspapers, books, fairy tales, websites thought for English-speaking children, and so on. They introduce students to the foreign culture and provide them with opportunities to see where different grammatical structures and types of discourse are used. Authentic materials complement English classes by enlivening the class and creating a more positive attitude towards learning. To make good use of authentic material, it is recommendable to have an extensive collection of materials that include menus, maps, newspaper inserts, store advertisements, travel brochures, catalogs, phone books, real estate pamphlets, and various pamphlets of sightseeing and tourist information. There are several important points to consider when choosing authentic materials. There should be enough copies of the materials to be used so that each student or pair of students can have a copy to use. It is best not to use material with too many pages, unless the pages are clearly numbered for easy reference. Besides using questions, there are other tasks to be used with authentic materials. Some of these can be used as a supplement to the question handout or on their own, for variety. Word search, crosswords, personalizing, pair practice, internet. 4. Students' collaboration in designing material. This aspect of teaching English is also called learner-designed material and is mainly thought for students in higher grades. Many times, the students, having developed the materials, are willing and able to take on the role of the teacher and organize and lead the class in the task. The idea of learner-designed material is strongly related to the theory of learning styles. Each person's learning style is a combination of perceiving and processing information. At the presentation stage, it is difficult for them to participate because of the lack of knowledge. Nevertheless, they can bring facts in L1 to the classroom to be worked out in L2, and they can bring realias like photos or maps. At the revision or review stage, their possibility to collaborate is a lot bigger. The participation and collaboration of students will highly depend on their level of knowledge. That means the more English the pupils know, the more possibilities to collaborate there are.